Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Male Movement Podcast. We are here to help men move their lives. So trying to get you from point A to point B, hopefully to point Z one day. I know how moving forward is challenging. It's hard, but it's something we all want to do. We're all looking to become a better version of ourselves in some form or another. It could be physically, spiritually, mentally. So the podcast is here to help you by sharing what we've learned. There's a lot that I've picked up in my lifetime. There's a lot of friends I know, experts I know that all have amazing information to help me along the way. So we're just here to share this with you. Hopefully, like I said, to get every man to be the best version of themselves. On this podcast today, we are bringing in my really good friend and spirit brother, Scott Simons. He's been around for 15 to 20 years in the health and wellness industry. He has helped many people through many things. He's a practitioner of yoga, breath work. He's also a wealth of information. He's been there for me when I've had really hard times. He's been there for me when I've had really good times, but we've always been open and honest, which is something that I find more men need in their lives. So welcome, Scott Simons, to the podcast.
Thank you, Charo, and congratulations on this first episode for shipping and testing and diving into this experience. It's so hard to show up and do the work, and you're doing it, man. So good stuff.
Thank you, sir. We can talk about all those things later on one day, because I can tell you there's a lot of things happening when you try something new. Imposter syndrome, huge one. But that'll be for another episode. Today we're going to talk about some of Scott's expertise and also just some of the things that are really important to us. First things first, what are your expertise? What are you good at?
My expertise, that's a good question. I'd say my passions are everything around health and wellness for the past 20 years, mindset, leadership, spirituality, breath work, meditation, anything that helps me and the people I serve become the best versions of themselves, I'd say.
So we can see that there's a good little line there, trying to get the best version of themselves. Hence the reason why I brought him on. He helped me be the best version of myself. It's super important. When you have the right people around you, you can do amazing things. So be it through podcasts, be it through a book, be it through in person. When you meet the right people, they will help you get to the next step. So that's a good thing. There's really something it's in my heart that I've been wanting to talk about, and I feel like you're a great person to start with this. Lately, I've been having this concept of this inside man. So the man inside me that's been wanting to come out, that's been wanting to show himself, that's wanting to grow and be a better version of himself, but he gets blocked sometimes. How do you feel about that?
It's a good place to start. There's definitely a lot of wisdom inside of us. There's authenticity there. And then there's other circuits in our brain, other energies, conditionings that are there to, quote unquote, protect us or save us from evolution or transforming. And if we look at just the brain, for example, the primitive circuits in our brain that for thousands of years were there to keep us in our cave, to keep us in our comfort zones, because leaving our comfort zones and evolving would mean danger, threat, war, tribes, animals, hunting, and whatever. And now in 2024, at least here where we are in Montreal, we don't have those. I don't know, you don't live in a cave. So when you leave your apartment, there isn't a threat necessarily. So those primitive circuits aren't serving us as much anymore. However, they're there for lots of us. And just speaking of myself, they're definitely still very prevalent. And they want to defend me against transforming and becoming the best version of myself. And that can mean showing up to the gym, going to the yoga class, starting a business, anything I feel it's proactive or that adds to my health. I need to face that resistance, that friction, the excuses, the procrastination, the snoozing, almost for myself on the daily, because I'm constantly growing and evolving. So I can feel that inner Scotty, let's say, or Scotty boy, I like to call him at times, which is an energy inside of me that's free-flowing, trusting, loving, open. Yet there are some other energies that are much more, I feel, destructive at times and get in the way and make me feel that I can't achieve my potential, and that make it seem so difficult and such a huge task when really it's so simple at the same time, because that energy is inside of us and we just need to stay connected to it. So I'd say the inside man is probably what a lot of men are struggling to connect to at the moment because of either toxic masculinity or the conditionings we have or the upbringing we had about what it means to be a man. And that's really shifting, and it's shifting really quickly at the moment. I say like men, I feel, or myself, I'm trying to find what does it mean to be a man in 2024?
That is a very good description of a lot of things, and B, a very good way to transition into something else. I heard something in there, and I just want to I'm always dropping in, but it's also, this is just my hearing, and I found it interesting because before we had all these threats that were coming outside. So in our cave, we were safe. I feel like right now, the cave isn't the safe place. The cave is where my fears grow because I have social media, I have these things. So my cave is no longer safe. I feel safe when I step out of the cave and I'm outside now. And that's a really interesting shift because when I'm at home, if I'm by myself solo, the head takes over. That's when I feel insecure. That's when I feel not driven. That's when I feel like I'm at my worst. When I go outside of the cave and I go hunting, let's say we can use that term, and I go do the gathering and I go play and I do these things, I feel safe again. And that was when you said that, I was like, that is an interesting shift.
So a question on that. Does it take effort though for you and a certain push or discipline to get out of the cave for you? Because speaking for myself, mental health was one of my big challenges and still is. Let's say addiction was one of mine as well too. And mental health and addiction can keep you isolated, and even just going to the grocery store or reaching out to a friend can seem like such a huge task. You feel that you're heavy, or you feel that you're depressed and everybody knows about it. You're going to destroy their day and stuff like that. However, if I did have the discipline to push myself and just walk out the door and meet somebody in the first 88 seconds I meet, for example, we're laughing and we're having fun. You're like, okay, ask God to talk to me about your depression or whatever it is. And 7 minutes later, everything's cool. And now we're having fun. But my mind was making that encounter seem so heavy or so impossible, when really it was just a little effort of getting out of my comfort zone, getting out of the door. Like when I go to the gym and when I don't feel like it, the second I walk through that door, the mind just kind of surrenders and said, okay, Scotty's made it here. And now, I didn't win this battle. The mind's like, I didn't win this battle. So for you, okay, you're stuck in your apartment stuff, but you feel the freedom when you get out. Is it hard for you sometimes to get out of your comfort zone?
So I love where we're going with all this. It is the hardest part. We always make up the story of starting the podcast. This part's going to be hard. Going to the gym before I leave. The hardest part is getting the momentum and the action moving forward. And I know that now. So it's a good thing. My tips and tricks when I would come to this is putting things in my calendar and being responsible to go do them. So I have my 4 gym trainings a week that are there. I have my workout groups that I go to that are very therapeutic. I put in things that I know will feed me in my time. What I don't do is put in time to reach out to friends and put in time to put in the effort in the places because that's another fear, is can I reach out to somebody? And I've been getting better at that, but that's something that I realized over the last 2 or 3 or 4, probably 45 years, I'll be honest with you. Probably my whole entire life until lately or a couple of years ago, is I will not put time aside to spend with friends properly, with the people I want to. We did it a little bit,
yeah,
but that took a little bit of effort to reach out to each other. But now once that's done, it's amazing. I wouldn't do that before for multiple reasons. One of them being sometimes when I'm partnered, I forget about those things. Sometimes being I just fear asking for help or showing up and saying, I need you. Hey, I need somebody. And those words will shake my soul at times. But again, as soon as they're out, I feel free again.
Is it the vulnerability? Is it, once again, that conditioning that men are weak? Let's say if they reach out, or if they do share their tougher emotions, is that what comes up for you? Anything around vulnerability?
I mean, definitely it goes in that direction. Definitely goes in the direction of I can't show who I am. Because if I show who I am, and this is a big one we're going to talk about, and sometimes I might cry, but I think I'll be fine today. When this comes to if I show who I really am to the world, that inside man, the world will not love me. So I need to do either this by myself and hold it all in, or I won't show you because if you do, you're going to leave, or you're not going to love this part of me. So in there, they always say there's these masks that we've carried for years on top. So learning to just let go of those, and everything in life is practice. I am learning this, so it makes my brain more of a scientist point of view now. I like to sit there, and when I feel nervous and feel something, and I like when you say this, it's all data taking in. So I'll go out and I'll put myself in a place and say, I just want to practice having a conversation with somebody right now. So let me reach out to Scott and practice having a talk about my emotions. Yeah. I want to, with my partner or whoever I was with, I want to reach out to her because I wouldn't do this before. Let me practice putting myself out there and seeing how this feels. So now I'm taking in new information, and usually that new information proves the false information wrong. So they're not going to love me. Oh, they love me. And it's like I get to pick and choose, but it's more of a, since I'm looking at it in a scientific, fun way, it doesn't seem so fearful.
It's definitely walking into the fears. I mean, there are some fears that are valid, like fear of heights or something like that, but the ones that are the illusions that come from the mind, and that's where that discernment, the data that we're talking about, data, discernment, and then decision. That's from Steve, my mentor. But that discernment, because the ego can wear the mask of wisdom, can wear the mask of spirituality. But once you get the data and you start to understand your personal posture and your openness and your coherency, you can start to discern, okay, is this a real fear, or is this just the mind trying to keep me small, or keep me in my cave, or keep me in not necessarily the best version of myself? And then you can walk into or through those fears and you realize that they're all illusions. And, sometimes, the fear is there, but when you walk into it, the mind loves to exaggerate and create scenarios and illusions and dramas and movies, and you think you're in the movie, and really it's just all these strategies to keep us small.
So what strategy are you using to keep yourself small right now?
Netflix. I'm watching a lot of sports documentaries. And at the same time, it's a double thing, because I've been so committed and so driven, worked really, really hard, to burn out sometimes. And I'm accepting that I want to watch The Last Dance, 4 times, because I love Michael Jordan. I love popcorn. And what is it feeding? I love to ask myself that question. What is this feeding? Because sometimes the popcorn and the Netflix is feeding laziness. Sometimes it's feeding, I just need to chill. And, and that's okay. I don't mind feeding that. If it's feeding the laziness on the daily and I'm doing it, it's an addiction, it's a pattern that's destructive, then it's more of trouble, let's say. At the moment, I'd say, it's the Netflix is what's coming up in a sense. Wanting to snooze, wanting to stay in bed, wanting to skip the practice. I'm giving more space these days to that voice of wanting to push things off, because maybe it's also a voice of wisdom that it's a time to slow down a bit, because the last year was a real roller coaster, and at my core, I'm tired. I've pushed so much in the past 20 years, health and wellness and corporations and communities. And it feels like in this second half of life, I'm 46, in the second half of life, that warrior spirit, with my therapist, she's like, Scotty, you have to put the sword down. You have to surrender a bit. So I'm practicing that with maybe staying in bed in the morning, not having to get up at 5 o'clock and have a cold shower. Like, that's really served me a lot. Is it serving me at this phase? I'm always going to love the cold shower and then getting up early. I think it's really important, especially in the beginning when you're reclaiming your power and reclaiming higher ground. at the moment I'm practicing surrendering and opening up to facets of my life and strategies that I've never used before. So I don't know if it's necessarily, I think it's slowing me down in a good way, because at the moment I need to slow down. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It answers some good questions in there. It also brings like point of views and things. That's why I love having conversations. I listen a lot, and then my brain, A, makes me feel like I'm associating, and B, lets me reflect on different point of views, structures. And there's something I heard, like I read The Superior Man, and it's like we always hold on to a version of ourselves because there's an expectation that we are one person forever. You are supposed to do this one thing for your entirety of your life. And that bared a shitload down on my life because I never had one thing. I was always shifting through and everything else. So I was like the jack of all trades. And that really made me feel terrible because I wasn't doing what everybody else was doing. And I was like, oh, but then I read The Way of Superior Man, and I really like this. It's like if you look at a human and a man, we are like, and again, we have all these multiple layers to ourselves, but sometimes we just stay on that one layer, but we're not getting closer to our core because all these experiences are supposed to bring you that wisdom, that knowledge, that insight, so you get closer to your center. And if you aren't willing to change, you're never going to get there.
I like that. And this morning, it's funny that what you just said, I got up and I finished my practice. And I've failed a trillion times in my life. Like I failed through school. I failed in businesses. I've never really brought any business to success in terms of the what's the word? Way of measuring success, let's say in our society, by sales and stuff like that. And this morning I was looking back and I was thanking those failures because they're bringing me exactly here in front of you. And I've been pissed off at those in the past, and why am I not more successful and this and that or whatever, and trying to figure it out. And I should be here instead of this and that, and comparing. And that does absolutely nothing to me other than paralyze me and make me feel inferior, and it doesn't support my mission at all. And this morning I got up, and I don't know how long this will last, but I was embracing those failures as the teachings. And here I am at age 46 with the wellness toolkit that's super complete. There's so much more to add to it, but also as an eco-preneur, the projects I've started, the people I've met, the networks I've done, the travels I've done. And it was more having gratitude for those failures. And that just kind of came up this morning. I've felt this before, but I think I'm at that midlife, so I'm looking back at the first half of life. And if I look from one angle, it's been a complete failure. But from another angle, there's been thousands of successes. So just this switch, I'm reframing. I'm learning to reframe a bit, or else it just becomes super heavy and it doesn't support and doesn't serve at all.
So anybody out there, if you understand that and feel that, it probably landed somewhere in your gut and your soul, because that is how I feel right now. There's these like, oh yeah, I feel like that a lot. And that's what is really helpful to us when we could sit there and we're having a conversation and somebody says exactly how you feel. And you're like, fuck, I'm not alone. I'm not allowed to swear on these things. I'm not sure yet. We'll figure this one out as I go.
Probably.
Oh, anyways, but it's that feeling that I'm alone through all of this that I feel men carry a lot. I will be the lone wolf and I will bury this with me and I will take this all. And then when somebody else comes up and tells me and shares with me and we talk, I can leave being like, oh, it's not just me. And we have a lot of things that make us original and individual, but we have a lot of things that we are all experiencing in our entire lives together. And when we can sit and share and talk, we can get through a lot because we help each other breathe freely, clearly, and just know that we are not alone through all these things. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. It just brings up to the power of community as well, too, which is something that you're a master at, I feel. And thank you because you brought me into your communities many times And I've often resisted because I've been in isolation mode or in dark mode or in cat mode, just mentally. And the power of community is one of the most effective, I'd say, antidotes to mental health, to depression, to burnout. And I think on the planet at the moment, we're talking about the recession and everything. I feel that we're in a depression planetarily, collectively, which is actually a beautiful place to be, because it's like shit is the best compost, is what I'm about to say. So I think at the moment, it's like this shitty kind of phase that can really help us grow. Unless we do it individually, unless we keep doing that individual thing. And this is where this podcast, Male Montreal, Be Human Club, and all these other beautiful communities that are popping up left and right here in Montreal and around the world, that connection to community where you don't feel alone, where you feel seen, where you feel heard, that term that's overused, but I think it's truly important, that safe space where you can be challenged and supported and inspired and cheered on when you need to be cheered on, and cheering somebody else on. Like our exchange yesterday, we went snowboarding, an hour and a half drive up, let's say, beautiful conversation, had a great time, and that was communion. That alone, I've done that alone many times. It's great, it's cool, connects me to my individuation, but there's something about community, and it's such a beautiful solution at the moment. And that's why I think the work that you're doing at the moment, especially with this podcast, is extremely important, because we can't do this on.
Definitely feel that, agree with that, understand that. They say you build what you needed most when you were a child, and I needed community, and I still need it every day. Whenever I walk away from that, I feel extremely alone. This lone wolf thing that men hold on to needs to disappear. You want to be an individual, yes. You want to be an individual in a pack, though. You want a pack that's going to support you, help you grow, and let you be, and this is exactly why we're doing this, the best version of yourselves. When you fall, it is okay to be picked up. When you have and need help, it's okay to get it. It's only there to help you be the best version of you. We need to stop walking away from that. The more we lean into it, they say, the better we will all be. Every man can be such a good version of themselves if we just get out of our own way. And you know what? Somebody else will help you do that. A lot of people will help me do that. Sometimes I get blindsided by things because I am in my own head and I do not see what's happening. So I need somebody to point out that shadow. I need somebody to point out my flaws. I also need to accept it and take it as help. So sometimes when somebody points something out in my past, I didn't understand that, and I wouldn't take it as help. I would take it as an aggression, an attack on my person. Now somebody can point out that I am, what is it called? Avoidant. And I will be like, let me go look at that. I need to find out because I want to be a better version of myself. It's not an attack on my person.
Yeah, we can only grow with feedback, so take it constructively.
Yeah, so I'm okay with that. And please, if somebody, when you're expressing something, and there are ways to do this, we'll talk about this another time. If somebody who cares for you walks up and tells you something, it's because they might be seeing something that you're blind to. I see this on my own. With people, I see this. So there's an expansion there when you're in a group. They have point of views that I don't.
I think in terms of that best version of yourself, yeah, that can be interpreted in so many ways. Of course, guys like us, or a lot of men, will bring the performance in. You need to be the best in terms of like the number one or whatever. I'm starting to shift that towards bringing that female energy in, the empathy, the compassion, the gentleness. It's not a competition. It's not a race. It's just the best version of Scotty. What does that mean? And putting aside a bit that hyper-disciplined, which is still important. Discipline is still key for me. However, how can I come at it with that more feminine yin energy that's needed in all our systems at the moment? Education, political, financial, a healthcare system, but also just I think the male system needs the yin energy, needs that female energy. And it's funny, what's just coming up, I guided a men's group a few months ago, my first men's group. It was beautiful, about 10 of us. And it was Kimiko, my friend, that was with us. It was funny to guide. It was like myself and Kimiko, so a woman and a man. And having her there, because she's such a strong female presence, it actually enhanced the experience, because I felt she was there to hold space for the man, also cheer us on for the work we were doing, and like women, we see you type of thing. I think there's been a lot of things around women kind of pushing men down and this and that, and we're trying to find our way. But I think if that yin energy is really at the service of the yang, and the yang's at the service of the yin internally, but also like a Kimiko that comes to a men's group. Okay, why is a woman coming to a men's group? It just helped kind of support the men to, I think, open up even more, seeing that they were held by a man and a woman. So I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but
yeah, where they did.
Yeah. I think it's for myself at the moment, the best version of myself. And it's funny because I'm coming back to yoga. I was really into yoga from, let's say, 2007 to 2017 for about 10 years. And I think I went too far in my yin. I became too, I don't know, maybe not too gentle and compassionate or whatever. But anyway, all that to say that I'm coming back to that now, and coming back to yoga. And it is, I feel, helping me balance out my yin and my yang. So I think that's what I need. And I think that's what a lot of men need at the moment, is to call in that yin energy, that female energy.
So lots of great information in there. I will share something that's going to be super important for me through this podcast, through my life, through coaching, through everything. The importance of letting a human be an individual. So when we're talking to things, like there's that archetype of being the warrior. I don't need a million warriors. They're great. They will be of service in the right position. But we don't need a million warriors. We need somebody who's a father. We need a scientist. We need all these things. And the best version of you will be whatever that is. I want to see those versions. I don't want everybody to be grabbing a sledgehammer and running around and doing tricks. I want somebody I need the gentle heart in my life, because I am rigid and hard sometimes. So, and again, going to having a great woman supporting you, that takes that with me. But everybody needs that opposite, those things. The world needs individuals at their best, and then we can come together and talk. So when you're talking about that yin and yang and how we find balance, and how I loved how Kimiko was there, because I know Kimiko as well. She's an amazing human. She's soft, she's smart, she's strong. Yeah. When I meet her, I'm like, ooh, God, she's a strong woman. But she can hold well. And that was a very soothing feeling to be around. So when we find ourselves around the right people, man, woman, they can support us in so many ways. And that's why if she was too rigid, it probably wouldn't work. But she knows how to hold both sides. And the same thing, if we can hold all sides of each other and just be the ones that, when I'm me, I'm calm, I can hold everything. And that's what I want to see in the world. Everybody be that person who just feels centered, feels grounded, feels at peace, and can find that when in any turbulence, they can just maintain. Because you know what? When you know your structure and you know yourself, you can always come back and find it. And that will make you just feel right.
Yeah, what's coming up is that the moments that I've gone too yang have always led to anxiety, depression, and burnout. This was coming up because I push too much. I'll push in the wrong direction. I'll try to force things. Like corporations, okay, they need health, and I'll be pitching them, and they don't want it. I get pissed off, and I keep pushing it down their throat. It doesn't work, and then the second I call in the yin, I feel so masculine, that's why initially when I did yoga in 2007, like, okay, what's Scotty up to? What is yoga and why is he? But I had such a beautiful posture, not just physically, but on life as well too. And I felt super balanced. So I think calling in the yin for me has really helped me with my mental health, my addiction, the anxiety, the stress, the extreme sort of masculine stuff. And that's when I'm looking at politics at the moment, and the wars that are going on and this and that are just so masculine. And like, can we put a little yin in there to calm it down? You know, I don't think these systems would be as destructive if there was female energy, not just a female itself. It could be a man with female energy. running these systems, I truly don't think they'd be as destructive as they are. And it's urgent and important that we call in that energy, because it's quite insane what's going on in terms of destruction at the moment. However, we can really very simply and like in a nanosecond almost turn it around, which inspires me.
There's something I want to, because you were talking about when you were doing your yoga, you found that balance, you found that stability. And that makes me think of, like, we're supposed to be, as they say, as the man, as the masculine, we're supposed to be this rock to lean on. Do you find when you were at that moment, you were stable to be a supportive man in somebody's life?
When I was in the extremes?
No, but when you came back.
When I came back, definitely. I mean, towards my projects, towards my friends. And it's also the synchronicity of it. Whenever I feel that I'm back into balance, people start to come to ask for tips and tricks or guidance or whatever. And that's always been one of my indicators. Like, okay, when I am feeling solid and balanced, I seem to attract people that want that balance. And how am I doing it, this and that? So when people come to me, I'm like, oh, I think there's a resonance there. There's a coherency. There's a frequency of balance, and people can feel it, because I know they can feel it as well too when I'm off balance, when I'm unbalanced. So definitely when I'm feeling more that I can be at the service of myself, then I can serve others and serve communities more effectively.
So something that Scott brought into my life is the word coherence. We talk about it a lot. We were talking about it yesterday, and it's like when you're in coherence, how things kind of just flow and you feel normal and you feel natural. So A, I love Scotty tips and tricks. And B, I also understand one thing that I'll try to remember as we do this podcast is a lot of people throw words out and then we start talking about them, but we didn't explain what that word is. So I'll be like, what the hell? And then I have to go Google it and find it and figure it out. So can you please explain what being in coherence is?
Well, my journey to coherency came from really getting fed up of feeling incoherent. The first one was around drugs and addiction. The more I go into that, the more incoherent I'd feel. And when I met Steve, my mentor, at age 19, I was at drug rehab for 3 months. And during those 3 months, I've never seen it this way, but I think I tasted coherency. We were in Natsuk, in the middle of the woods, no electricity, on a lake. I was fishing every day. I'd never fished in my life. I'd never spent more than a weekend, I think, in nature. So 3 months was quite a shift. And nature, I think, naturally, the more time you spend, or even, that feeling when you get out of the car and you close the door and you're like, you're coming from the city. I think that's coherency. And so from that point on, those 3 months, I tasted a deep sense of coherency, and it became kind of like my compass. Because when I came out of drug rehab, like 9 months later, I went back to drugs and alcohol and this and that. And it would just kill me because I felt so incoherent. Same thing with mental health. Mental health, you feel so incoherent. So incoherency, coherency in terms of the science of it in the body is a frequency of 0.1 hertz that you get to after 5 minutes of what's called heart coherence, which is breathing in for 5 seconds and breathing out for 5 seconds. So when you breathe in for 5 seconds, you're tapping into the sympathetic nervous system, which gives you energy, which creates a bit of stress on the body, really good stress. And when you exhale, you're tapping into the parasympathetic, which is the relaxation response. And when you do that for 3 to 5 minutes, coherency starts to settle in around 3 minutes. 5 minutes, you're really at a maximum, let's say, state. After those 5 minutes, you're not stressed, you're not relaxed, you're in what they call a coherent state. So you're kind of like a ninja, you're like a Jedi, you're like a sensei, you're like a Buddha. You're, instead of reacting to life, you're responding to life. Because you've done the inhaling 5, you've reinforced the sympathetic, and exhaling 5, you've reinforced the parasympathetic. So after that, if stress is coming at you, you're going to respond to it much more effectively. If you need to relax, you'll respond to that much more effectively as well too. And that, I think, is truly at the moment, the superpower on the planet at the moment, is relearning how to relax. Like, we've really done the stress thing and the performance and results and this and that and KPIs and whatever it is, goals and objectives. However, the superpower and the solutions and the wisdom and the intelligence and the sophistication of the body is discovered in deep relaxation. So people have to relearn how to relax, and that's in the exhalation. But that coherent state, you're not relaxed, you're not stressed, you're in an optimal state. And you'll feel it because coherency is very, very different. Of course, you'll feel that you're not stressed, but you also feel that you're not relaxed. Relaxed is another state where you're chill and you might want to fall asleep or something. When you're in that coherent state, it's an optimal state where you're alive, you're awake, you're open, you're receptive, and you're ready to respond to life. So that would be my response to that. And I think heart coherence, I know heart coherence is the most powerful and scientifically proven, simple, effective, and accessible breathing technique that everybody should practice on the daily. Because instead of having a primal, primitive, mind-driven life, if you practice this on the daily, you will have a heart-driven life. And your solutions and responses will come from the heart. And I'm not talking like woo-woo, cheesy, scary, or whatever. I'm talking like true heart coherence, where the diaphragm and the heart are starting to beat to the same beat. The breath is guiding the heart instead of the mind guiding the heart. And that's such a powerful state and stance that we all need to get into.
I love that. Thank you very much. Again, like I said, it's so important to understand the meaning of words. There's going to be a lot of words that are pitched out there, and people are they kind of come in and out, and then I didn't understand a lot of things. So I like to, sometimes I'll just be like, what does this word mean? And you saying that in such a beautiful way, so thank you for that, really lets it connect to a few things. In there's so many great little nuggets. Sometimes I'm going to forget, but the one thing I will start with on this is when you're talking about when you were coming into rehab and you hadn't touched coherency. And I think this is the importance of what we do, like how we do these things. We want to expose people to a feeling, a sensation, a place, a person, a thing for the first time. So when we do a weekend retreat with men, when we do a half a day experience, when you even get a hug, you're feeling something. And sometimes that might be the first time you felt that. And all of a sudden your brain will sit there and look and be like, oh, that exists. And now it gives itself permission to explore. But before, it didn't never touch that. So now when you feel coherent for the first time, you know you can find it again. And then the more you practice it, the more you get there. Like they said, with fires together, wires together, you're now wiring your brain to get there faster. So the more we do these practices, the more we do breath work, the more I train, the more I talk, the more I communicate, the more I experience, I express, it makes it easier for my brain to do it.
And health is not an experience, is not a belief. Sorry, health is not a belief, it's an experience. And coherency is something that needs to be experienced. I mean, all those things, endorphins, the cold therapy, yoga, meditation, like you can read about it, but an ounce of practice is worth more than a ton of theory. So that's why coherency, I'm hoping that people will go out and practice that. And what's coming up you're talking about words, and one of my favorite words as well too, if I can just share another one that's been really destroyed in North America, especially during the pandemic. And you know this word very well. It's conspiracy. And so there's inspire, expire, conspire, and con means with, and spirare, which is really the Latin root of spirituality. So spiritual for me is conscious breathing. That's spirituality. It brings you to the now, it brings you into your potential, it brings you into connection with other human beings, especially if there is a conspiracy where two human beings are coming together and breathing, and instead of their reactive minds trying to prove a point, I am right, you're wrong, blue, red, vax, not vax, war, this, that, whatever, which brings us nowhere. As we saw, they can come together and breathe together and listen to each other and create space for each other and respond instead of react. So that coherency, that conspiracy, the true conspiracy on the planet It's human beings coming together, and I've seen it, and I've witnessed it, and I've felt it coming together, breathing consciously, and then from there, listening and finding solutions that transcend what the individual can do. And that's through that conspiracy, we will reclaim higher ground if we do that. But that's where that discipline comes in. We're coming back to that, coming out of your comfort zone, getting up from the couch and going out and meeting somebody, or going to the yoga practice, or going to the gym, or going to the networking event, or going to the dance that you don't want to go to. That's where the individual needs to do the work. Once you do that, then you're contributing to that conspiracy. Because energetically, if we're all staying home in front of Netflix and calling in Uber Eats and, you know, Mountain Dew and Doritos from the dep and this and that, it's just going to keep us small. But that little action, you know, and that's where that 5-second rule comes in. About 5 seconds to take action, or else the avalanche of excuses come in. But if we start to learn to stop those hesitations and move within those 5 seconds and reclaim our power individually, we'll finally be able to do it collectively. And it all comes down to the breath for me.
So again, so much information. I'm going to love to listen. That was great, because I'm going to want to listen to this podcast again and be like, okay, I need to hear some of those things. And that's why we do this. And as you're saying that, I was remembering, and I'm feeling, and I'm always thinking of when I had needed to step out and do those things for myself that would have been good, and I didn't. And I'm going to just talk to this too, because there's a lot of men out there who reach out. They want that information. They want those things. And that's why this podcast is here, because it's an easier level for them to get into. But I've heard so many men, when we do events, when we do things, and they're like, I've been waiting 3 years to come to this place, but I just couldn't get up. I couldn't do it. And when you are ready, we will be there. People will be there. But you need to take the first step on your own. Everybody will catch you after. But once you get up and you say, I need help, somebody will catch you. When you get up and you say, I'm going to go to that thing, you're going to learn how to take that. You're taking charge. That's how a man takes charge. That first step is up to you. The rest you can get. But if you can get up off that couch, if you can go do that thing, and you can start saying, I trust myself. I can do this as a man. I can do this as a human. I can take control. That 5 seconds, you will change your life. And it's such a weird point in your life, but it seems like nothing, but it's probably the most important part that I see.
The courage to do that, the courage to stand up. It's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. If you've seen that movie, I think a lot of people have, where he turns around and he faces the agent, you know, and the courage to do that is because you're turning around and you're facing the ego. You're facing that and those energies that served us for so long, as we mentioned at the beginning, to keep us small, because leaving the cave meant danger. But now you're turning around and you say, no, it's 2024. You know, thank you, primitive circuits in the mind. You've done a great job to get us here. But now I'm the master. You're the servant. You're not the leader. And the more we do those 5-second actions, because when you get off the couch and then you look at the compost and you'll say, because normally you'd be like, oh no, I'll do the compost later, but I'll do the dishes later, I'll do the wash later, I'll go to the gym later. We hesitate, we procrastinate, we push things off. But once you take that little action, you start to feed proaction instead of reaction. You start to feed that momentum instead of feeding the lethargy and the laziness and the snooziness and the procrastination. You'll see the universe, you know, without getting too woo-woo, but the universe, the energy, the community, the people will show up, and it'll be that much easier the next time. But that first time, it's so tough, and it's so important to do at the moment. We could wait. A few years ago, maybe it was important, but it wasn't urgent. It was really important to get up, even pre-pandemic. Now it's urgent and important. So, and when you're getting up, it's to remind yourself that, yes, I'm doing this for myself, and I'm also feeding humanity. I'm feeding the next generations, because the next generation might be the first generation that will not have a lifespan. They will have a lifespan that's shorter than the generations before. This is where we're adding into. This is the legacy that we're leaving behind. And that can shift. But it takes that first 5 seconds, takes courage to do it, because we're so stuck in comfort. I mean, in North America, it's a disease, I'd say. I'd say comfort is a dis-ease. It's everywhere. It's coming at us from our phones. It's so easy to stay in your comfort zone. And it seems so tough to get out of it, But that's the illusion. And you talked about it. Once you get up and then the momentum is behind you, and then you go to the networking event, you go to the men's group or whatever it is, you're like, shit, okay, wow, why didn't I do this 3 years ago? Because the mind was in the way. I was feeding the mind. And the mind's like a little chihuahua. It's like a little, it seems so powerful. I used to call it the mean motherfucker. Like, hopefully we can say that now. I used to call it the mean mother effer or whatever. And now I realized that it was just a 3-year-old kid. This is through therapy, a 3-year-old kid that just wanted a hug. And I was fighting it for years. Like, I was going to war with my mind. Like, and I'm a fighter. It takes a lot. Like, I wouldn't fuck with myself. Yeah. And it brought me down to my knees until I realized that, oh, that's where that yin came in. It's little Scotty that just wants a bit of love, that just wants to hug and move from there. So that's where I'm moving from, much more than from that warrior spirit.
So much good information. I'm going to come back to all this. So it's funny because I keep thinking, and you've said all these words and we've said it repeatedly now. And I'm like, what are the 3 things that are like important to me with men in the community and all this thing I'm building and rebuilding and we want and we're trying to and we will. I'm not going off on this one. I say community. I say courage. And I say consistent action. Those are the 3 things that if I can always find, I will be the better version of myself. And I lean into community. So I love community. I lean into it as much as I can. But here's the funny thing. I lean into it for others, not for me. I create community and I create stability and I create something for everybody else. I don't do it for myself. And this is a sneaky little bugger because I do that a lot. And I've laughed about this now because now I can see it. So now I'm like, oh, you're doing it again. But like, so I have a beautiful apartment. I didn't do certain things in my apartment until I was going to rent it to somebody else. So then I decided to put these things up and I'm like, why wouldn't I do that for me? I will do everything in this world for everybody else, but I need to also do it for myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which from the outside, like when I met you and continuously throughout our friendship, I'm always like, this guy's a community guy. He's always surrounded by people. However, it's true. It's always in an organized context or it's always goal driven or something like that. It's not just hanging out. I mean, we hang out together and you will hang out, I think, with friends, but it's true that it's always to serve something with your community. Like you're training people, you're going to volleyball or whatever. But when is it your community for at the service of your growth, let's say, or to listen to you? Maybe that's what you're talking about, which isn't evident from the outside when looking at.
No, and it took somebody pointing out a small little flaw, and then I was like, and it's like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. I like that line too. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, the way I do one thing, and that just whacked me in the face. So then now I say that a lot. I'm like, so the way I do one thing is the way I do, and then I'm like, I could see the domino effect, and I get to see that depth of it. And I built it because I know I needed it, but I didn't give it to myself. I gave it to everybody else. Now I'm learning to find it for myself. And it doesn't mean honestly, it's funny. Like I said, I like going to CrossFit now. Why? Because there's a community there that I didn't create, that I get to show up to and that I get to go and receive from. And that fills my cup immensely.
And that's a good word, learning to receive. Hasn't been easy for me to learn that as I've been giving to, as I mentioned, to communities, community work, to corporations. And it's not easy for me to get into that. I think I feel vulnerable. I feel, I don't know, even just receiving a gift. I love giving gifts, as you know. I like gift giving is one of my love languages. That's how my family expressed love as when I was a kid. So I think I got kind of conditioned into that, but I do love giving gifts to people. But receiving them, really hard. I feel awkward. I don't know how to open it up and I don't know how to react or whatever. So I think that's a good word for you as well, to learning how to receive.
And again, I think this is a masculine thing. This is a man thing. This is the, how do I appreciate this and how it makes, I'm trying to talk about it. It's making me nervous. I'm like, like how and where and why is it so hard to sit there and let somebody give you something and take care of you? It's such a mind-boggling thing.
I don't have the answer, but I know exactly what you're talking about because I can feel it, and it's very awkward. It's an awkward posture for me. The receiving, like open for me is different. Like I'm practicing now in my meditations, this heart opening. I think 2024 for me is really heart driven more than mind. I trust my heart much more than my mind these days. But receiving is this.
I'm happy to have the camera on for that one. Receiving, son of a.
Yeah. It's something that I need to practice, and it's all good.
So I'm happy. This is always going to be the reasons why I'm happy to do these things, because I need everybody to know that we are not perfect. I have a lot of skills. I have a lot of information. I have done so many things, but I'm still learning every single day. And when we talk about receiving, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to go Google it. I'm going to find somebody who I can have a conversation with at some point and be like, how do men receive better? Because it's going to help me be a better version of myself, and it will make me happy to be able to sit there and not freak out when somebody gives me something.
I'll gladly give you a gift.
But see, for you, it's okay. I'm like, okay, but like I love relationships. I've always wanted to, I get in them and I love being with people. But as soon as I love a woman, receiving becomes sometimes challenging. And I want to get over that. And I want to, and it's going to be a practice. It's going to be learning. But again, this is about growth. This is about changing. This is about heading into those hard things. And it's about literally saying like, here, we have information and I'll help you get it. And if I don't, I will tell you, I will go find it and I'll come back.
Please share the teachings. I want to be your receiving coach.
It'd be like, perfect. Okay. So far we've covered a lot. There's a lot of information. Great doors. I love to talk about so many things in here. There's one thing that you did say that I would like to talk about, because it's something that I know is talked about a lot in this world, and it'll be fun to share our point of views on this, is the practice. So you hear a lot about people saying like the 5 a.m. club and then this, and there's so many versions of it, but it's like, I'm just going to share my idea of this right now because I find it helped me. You need to do a list of 90 things for a certain amount of time when you wake up to the time you're done. And if you don't, it doesn't work. A, that's something that I want to talk about. But B, what is a morning practice to you?
A morning practice for me is anything that brings me back into my coherency, or that feeds my coherency, feeds my posture, feeds my mission. And that can be a number of things, because this is the world we're in. From meditation to sweating, whether it's a spin class or going to the gym, anything that calms my mind down and acts as a natural antidepressant. Because when I get up in the morning, I'm still fascinated by that voice inside of me after 20 years of practice. And I give conferences on this. I coach people on this. The voice of resistance, even this morning. Like we had an amazing day yesterday. I didn't sleep super well, but I mean, whatever. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't dramatic, let's say. And I got up and I once again felt like snoozing, even though I know the 1,800 reasons why it's good to get up. And I was teaching a meditation at 6:00. So that actually got me out of bed, which is community. Once, sometimes community can't help you. You need to show up type of thing. And then I went to the gym and I felt fantastic after, but my energy wanted to just stay in bed. So I think the practice is something, and I'd say especially in the beginning, if we're talking to, let's say, people that are reclaiming either they need to lose weight or they're going through stress, anxiety, mental health, depression, whatever it is. In the beginning, the first 3 months, the practice, discipline, daily practice, pushing yourself is super important, I'd say. And I know like positive psychology and stuff like that. And, not maybe, saying it, not that it's going to be easier than it is, but I'm super straightforward. It's going to be really tough. Like the first 3 months are super tough. However, not as tough as the life that you're leaving behind. Like as I say, I practice hard in the gym to make the rest of my life easier in a sense. So the practice for me is anything that feeds and contributes to the healthiest version of Scotty. And in my case, as I mentioned, it's a lot of things, but that for everybody, it's different. And for me, it's getting up early in the morning and kind of taming that energy and reclaiming my power. And for somebody else, it could be different. And I'd say in the beginning, I'll repeat it, that practice, there are 1,440 minutes in a day. So 15 minutes is 1% of your day. That's a good place to start. Start with 15 minutes and don't skip a day for the first 90 days. Don't skip a day. And if you skip a day, all good. But go back, take the teaching and start over again. You start over 90 days. Like I'd say, sorry, you're starting over again. And that can feel discouraging. However, that's the process. That's the recipe in my mind.
So in there's, again, I love all the information. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to listen to this. So as a man, as a human, as who we are, when we miss something, when we skip a day, when we're feeding another side of ourselves, and you feed that, and that consistency feeds the other side. So it's the really, like, this is why it's hard, because we've never fed that part of ourselves. We've never fed, usually it's the challenging part is, I need to wake up at 6 a.m., but I won't because I have a habit, I have a pattern, I have a thing. And literally, whatever age you are, you've been feeding that thing for that long. And now for 0.1% of one day, which isn't a lot, you're trying to feed the opposite. So it's going to take a while to rebalance that. You have to put more value into the side of waking up early, going to the gym. And then it'll tip that scale. It starts to move. And once that you did it for 15 days, that was really hard. 30 days, now you're starting to feel momentum. Momentum starts to create. We start to get to this, well, like they say, the tipping point. And then you're like, yeah, I've been in here for 30 days. I feel good. I haven't betrayed myself. That's a really important word. That's what I was looking for. And every time you give up, you betray yourself. And then you get really hard on yourself because you feel down.
If I can jump in there, that's where addiction, because I remember when I came out of drug rehab for 9 months, I didn't consume anything. And then I went back to those strategies. Okay, only Fridays I can smoke a joint, or only Saturdays I can drink or whatever. And the betrayal that I felt inside of me when I do that, like I'd feel good. Like I used to love just rolling joints and the whole ceremonial aspect of it and the community aspect of it. We were together. But the addiction part of it just wasn't feeding my posture anymore. And the betrayal I felt inside, I felt that was like deceiving, like that deception, like the deception. And when you deceive somebody, or that you feel is that the word deceive? Like je déçu quelqu'un?
What about deceive, or like a let down?
Yeah, let down. You can let somebody down. It's like I've let down the best version of myself, and it's so disappointing. I guess disappointed is the word I'm looking for. When I feel that, that's maybe, I think disappointing myself and disappointing somebody else is probably, with guilt, probably the heaviest of emotions that I can feel. So I think that's a great word you came up with.
Yeah, and in there it's depression. Like I feel depressed. It just weighs. It is a heavy, heavy thing. So every time, and I'm happy you brought up some words, you are betraying yourself, but there's this point, and you did it there. And this is a super important one. So you are going to bargain. You are going to bargain the shit out of yourself. You are going to sit there and say, if you're on a diet, I'm going to start bargaining with. After a week, you get back, well, I can do it on Friday. Yeah. I can not go to the class on Thursday. I can skip a day. No. You are bargaining your shit away. And you cannot bargain with what you want. It has to be the bargaining, the value of the other end of there. Once you've completed your 90 days, 100 days, 500 days, you will never bargain again because you know the value at the end. You need to go find that value. So follow the fuck through, and then you will finally sit there. And then once you've done it, like I can train every day because I know the value. I don't bargain with that anymore. It's like I know how good I feel, and it has nothing to do with looks. It has nothing to do with anything else. I feel fucking great.
Yeah.
Because I'm not bargaining with myself. I'm following through, and I'm doing something that is good for my mind, my body, and my goddamn soul.
And then what's difficult with that is that you brought your game up another level. And once you've tasted that, then of course, once again, health is not a belief, it's an experience. Once you've experienced that, if you go down a couple of levels, it kills you. It's awful. So it's like, watch out. If you want to take this health thing seriously, it's a lifelong journey. You can't just say, like, okay, I'm gonna just take a year and be healthy. Yeah, okay, great. But trust me that after that year one, if you go back, it's gonna destroy you. It's gonna destroy your mind. You'll go into mental dis-ease for sure, because it's gonna eat you up, because you've tasted something. You've tasted the authentic, better version of Scotty, and now I'm going back. No. That's, that's gonna feel. It's just the dissonance, like listening to a song or going to the radio and you want to go to 99.9, but you're at 99.7. That it's just gonna drive you nuts.
And I love that, because I talk for that. So I'm a personal trainer, I'm a life coach, I'm a human, I'm a lot of things. So I talk to people often about feeling my best. And this is a good one. I have finally tasted what it is to be the best version of myself. And sometimes it's hard to let go of. I feel at my best, so I force myself to go to bed at 9:30 because I want to be at my best tomorrow, which means then I'm not going out to see friends and I'm not doing other things. So now it's this weird juggling state of, okay, I will sacrifice. I'm not saying sacrifice. That's a bad word to use. Because then it's sacrifice means like I'm taking something away. So if and this is good because I'm catching myself here. So I will say I was sacrificing night's sleep to go out and have fun, but I'm not sacrificing. I'm going to go spend some quality time with people, and that's going to feed my soul. But I know the next day I won't maybe feel the best, but my soul will feel a lot better, because I get into depression as fuck right now because I am withholding my fun and my freedom for this feeling of 100%. And I can, as I'm saying this, I could tell you why, because I'd never felt it before and I don't want to let go. I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid to losing it. I'm afraid of going back to that version of myself. And I talked to somebody about this the other day, and I went out. So I went out for the first time in a couple of weeks and hadn't done this. And I was like, I went out and had fun. And my brain was still thinking about the past version of myself that would fall off the wagon, get drunk, get high, and do all the stupid things that I used to do. And sometimes I need to remember that that's not me anymore. And I can go out and have fun and not fall off the wagon and be able to go and enjoy myself and say I'm going to go home at 1:30 because I feel like going home. And I wouldn't trust myself because I'm thinking of me at my 20s and my 30s, not me now. And that's a really impressively mind-fucking thing to happen. So a lot of good things in there.
A lot of good things there. I mean, what comes up is, I'm super transparent now about my mental health challenges and being on medication and stuff. And I'm not on medication. And it's super scary for me, to maybe have to go back to medication, but also super scary that mean motherfucker voice will come in. And that voice is super destructive, super violent with myself, not with anybody else. Extremely judgmental. All it wants, to not be too drastic, all it wants is to kill myself. That's what that voice wants. And that's a really heavy energy to hold on to. And I held on to that probably for way too long. That brings up a lot of emotion just talking about it, but probably for 15 years, 20 years, let's say. And I suffered and I suffered. So now that I'm off of that and I'm starting to taste, I'm starting to see the sun come up in my life naturally through communion, through connection, through practicing this and that, through the discipline. Yes, these days I'm a bit more disciplined and it maybe looks drastic on the outside, but it's my antidepressant. And it's not that if I need to go back on meds, and that's I'm not nothing against meds, I've done them before. I know it's an option. However, I feel that I can do this not on my own. I feel I can do this with community now and reaching out. And before, that was one of my major mistakes, was not reaching out. So I get it. That's why I go to bed at 9:30. And I'm a party animal too, bro. I want to go out and, it's not easy for me. But fuck, man, I don't want to go back to where I was. I don't want to feed that voice. And I know it. I can hear it. It's knocking at the door. So that's why I'm not drinking these days. Like, I haven't had a drink in the past 3 months. I've had maybe 2 drinks, and I could feel that one drink affects my sleep, which affects my energy the next day. And that can lead to a momentum of dis-ease and negative thoughts and anxiety and stress and not being able to show up for my projects. I've got 2 startups going on, and I can't take that risk at the moment.
I love this because, like I said, so to be the best version of ourselves, sometimes it's going to take a lot of challenging and growth. And then once you get there, you get to reflect back on the versions of yourself you used to be. And I know that I was never at my best because I was always drinking, always this. And I could probably say the majority of my life, I was half of a person, half of a human. We do not realize how impactful drinking, drugs, all these things are until we finally cleared them out. And it takes a while to clear out of your system, clear out of your life, clear out of everything. And then when you go back and you touch it, my brain literally goes, how the fuck did I live like that? How did I live hungover? How did I live sad? How did I live depressed? How did I live feeling unhealthy? How did I do that? And I hope whoever's challenged with these things, you get the time away from it that you need to understand how you feel without it. And then you trust yourself as a human. You're like, hey, I don't need the alcohol. I don't need the drugs. I can go out and have fun without this. I can be me without it. And that took a while to learn too. So being a man who did a lot of things, like decades and decades and decades, I would never want to go back there again. I needed him to get to here. But now I know. And I was hiding behind so many things. The alcohol, the drugs, the this, the that. And it took me a long time to just be like, I can sit and talk and communicate and be open. And I hope every man finds that.
It's finding that experience of what it feels like to surrender and get down on your knees, and realize there's something on the other side. You know, many times I was down on my knees, just kind of, and I'm not a big prayer guy or whatever. Sometimes when you're in the dark and living in the dark, you use anything you can. And I'd be like praying to God, just please shut this voice off, turn it down. And in that surrender, there was always something. There was a little voice, like Dan, my mentor, says, that our wisdom, the spiritual side of us is like a wild animal. You have to be silent. You have to give it space, and then it reveals itself. And many times when I've been really, really low, like on the edge, like scary edge of, wanting to take my life and this and that, there's always been a little nugget, a little voice saying, Scott, man, one more day, push just a bit more. Go to the gym, call somebody, whatever it is. And that is what guides me today, because I've given so much, and whenever I've created so many projects, and I continue to show up on the daily, even though it doesn't make sense sometimes, on mission to inspire daily practice, because I want other people to start to feel this and remind them so they can remember what it means to be human, and that there's so much potential inside of us when we start to commit, when we reach out, when we start to breathe consciously, when we open up the heart, when we connect to the feminine, and this and that, all we've been talking about. And I'm just feeling it now. Like I just went from like feeling really heavy emotions to feeling lighter. And that's where the solutions are for me. It's in that mission. It's in the conversation that we're having now. It's in the dialogue, during pandemic, it was monologue. You couldn't have dialogue. And look at what this dialogue is doing to us. Like, we are not the same men than when we started about an hour and a half ago, whatever it is. And that's through dialogue. That's through connection. So that's why I wanted to share for some reason.
I'll share one last thing, and then we'll figure out the parts that we can share with you so you have the right tools, the community, the communication, everything that we want, that we've practiced, that we've learned. I hate the term potential, or I used to, because I used to hate the term potential. So when I was at my lowest, everybody saw me at my best. It's like a lot of people would see the potential inside me, and I didn't think I would ever be able to get there, and it would drive me crazy. Because again, that inside man, that inside voice, that inside part of me was buried under so many things. And then when somebody would point at it, I would really just basically snap. Because I'd be like, there's no way I can get there. There's no way I'll be able to find that. There's no way I can change my life that drastically. And for those of you who don't know, I've been arrested. I've been to jail. I sold drugs. I've done so many things that would be terribly, terribly terrifying to a lot of people. Like when I sit there and I tell people these things, I'd wonder how I got back here. But I got back here. And now the term potential makes me happy. And that took turning points, took a lot of work. It took a lot of things. And it took learning to not regret the life I had. Because I thought my life passed me by. But now I realize my life is always in my hands. And that was a big changing point. When you start to change, when you start to do the things that you say you know you need to do, and I can tell you this is going to be an interesting one. If I ask somebody for information, they're going to give it to me. So that means they know what everybody else should be doing. And that means you know what you should be doing yourself. But you don't want to. Get up and do it. You know what it is. You know you sit there and you're fighting against it. If it's the gym, if it's the book, if it's the journaling, if it's the meditation, you're going to do those things. They're going to bring you to the place, and then you will not regret the mistakes you made because you will have changed. And until you change, you will hold on to regret forever. You need to turn those pages. You need to close those chapters. So when you look back at that chapter, it's a part of your life that you can look back on with open eyes and an open heart and be grateful for. So get up, change, do the thing. You will not regret it. I guarantee you that.
And that's powerful. And that's potent. Potent, the Latin root is power, like impotent, no power. And so your potency is your power. And you're reclaiming it. And I'm watching, since I met you, I don't know how many years ago, it's been beautiful to watch you evolve. I didn't know you in that other life. You told me all the stories. I'm like, wow, fascinated. And then I saw you from the ship going to India, doing yoga, training, becoming a personal trainer, starting communities, starting Mail. There's a lot of powerful stuff there. And because you're showing up on the daily.
Not on the daily.
No.
I show up more days than I do less of, which is the amazing thing. And I'll always be honest about that. But that's it. I want to be honest about those things. I'm not showing up on the daily. I'm showing up 90% more than I used to, which is better. And I will mess up and fuck up and I'll kick myself in the ass for doing it. But I'm always tipping that scale. I'm always, instead of spending 5 hours in my brain and ruminating about what I did bad and how this hurt and everything else, I learned the tips and tricks to make that 1 hour. So now I'm still in there, but I can get out faster. I'm on the couch. I've been on the couch all day. I'm on the couch for a couple hours, and then I catch myself saying, you're procrastinating, you're being a little dick, and get off there. But that's what you need to do. You want to just catch yourself and be like, why am I doing this? Okay, go. So don't shit yourself on yourself. Shit yourself. Weird fun. Don't shit on yourself if you're doing the thing. It's going to happen to all of us. Shit on yourself if you don't catch yourself doing the thing.
Yeah, Steve would say meditation is smile and come back to the breath. Smile and come back. Like out of the 40 to 60,000 thoughts we have per day, those thoughts are always doing their best to bring you into the past, the future, judgment, inferior, superior, judging yourself, judging others, bringing you into the illusions we were talking about. And in meditation, you're sitting there sometimes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you're gone, you come back. And before in mental health, I could be gone for weeks with one thought. And now it's hours, days sometimes, and I come back. So it is, and it's just that smile, like, okay, the mind got me again. I fell into the trap again. It's all good. Be gentle and come back to the breath. And you have 20,000 breaths per day. So 20,000 opportunities to practice that meditation, practice feeding your potency, your power.
So now I think it's a good time to start giving tips and tricks. And I'm going to share one of my really good ones for me is I count my wins. And I can see where I used to call that a loss. I'd be like, oh, I fucked up. I fell off the wagon or my brain ran away. Now I'll sit there and I'd be like, okay, my brain ran away for an hour, but I caught it. That's a win. That is not a loss anymore because before I would be going off for days. And just that possibility to change that mindset and that fraction saying, this is a win. Boom, I feel better. I feel like the momentum went from downhill to maybe neutral, but I'm coming back up with that. So count your wins, even as small as you think they are. One tip.
It's a really good one. And also, what is your definition of a win as well? I think that's important. As you said, what used to be maybe a loss or whatever is now a win for you. So you want a tip? Is that what you're...
Yeah, I know you got tons.
I mean, it comes down to I think we talked about it earlier. One of my powerful ones is the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. So it's taking action within those 5 seconds, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, counting down. Anything proactive, anything that's going to add to your health, any form of discipline, evolution, transformation, abs, learning, and the things that are really easy to do within 5 seconds. Like you rarely hesitate on the Netflix or going for a snooze or, having the popcorn or the chips or the beer or whatever it is. But those other things take action within those 5 seconds. And when you do that, you are taming the mind. You are mastering the mind. You're not controlling the mind. And I don't think we want to control our minds because our minds can be servants. I think the ego can be your best friend. It's like a dog. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And at least for myself, for years was my worst enemy. It's not as if we're like best friends on the daily these days, but much better relationship. And it comes in for myself from those actions, pro actions within 5 seconds, especially when I don't feel like doing it, especially when the excuses are coming in, take action. So the 5-second rule for me would be a tip.
Gotcha. So I like this. It's like a back and forth. And now I'm like, okay, I love the 5-second rule. We'll play that later. So again, as a man, we disappear, we hide, we become a lone rock. Like a rock that's just sitting there by itself, won't get off the couch. It's just sitting doing nothing because we think we're supposed to be this supportive structure. Like that whole image of being the rock. I don't know how I feel about that. I understand it. And now I can shift my thinking about it. We shouldn't be a rock. A rock has no emotion. We have emotions. We have energy. We have things happening where the ground's going to shake and it's going to happen. So the rock I think we should be stable, which is a good thing, and reach out, find community. That is my life word. Community, community, community. And the more you can understand how to find a healthy community for yourself, find a community that feeds your soul, feeds your purpose, feeds your plans, inspires you to move forward. Anything that's going to fill your cup, and that when you're full, you can actually feed it back into that community. It feels so good. So find community. And again, this was a really hard thing at one point for me. And somebody told me this, and I will always remember this. So I was a drug dealer for a long time. I was around all kinds of different people. And then somebody looked at me and said, "You are the company you carry." And in my mind, I was a good human. And in his mind, he's like, "Look at what's around you. That's who you are." And it shot me in my soul. And I was like, ooh, I thank that man. It was just a random conversation in the middle of a bar. And he said, "You are the company you carry." So when I look around me now, I am proud of the people that are around me. Hence you, hence my friends, hence my partners. All the people that are around me feed me and I feed them. And it's a very stable growth. You might have to leave a community to become a better man. And for some of us, that'll be a tough change. You'll feel alone, but I guarantee you, every man out there has a place and a purpose and people that will help support.
I think that's a great tip. And on that one, and sorry, just to add to it, community is 2 or more people. I know myself, when I was isolating, I was intimidated by, going to see anybody. So community doesn't have to be 150 people. It can be 2 or more people. That I think also what I was going to, because I was going to use the same one, like accountability, people that you feel accountable to, that see you, that witness your process, as I mentioned earlier, cheer you on, support you, nudge you, that are on similar paths as well too, can help, and that are there for you at any time of day. Like I know I could call you at 3 a.m. in the morning and you'd come over, or you'd say, "Oh, my couch is here," or whatever. So community is a huge one. Actually, in habit change, you need 3 major things: is a coach, rewards, and community. Coach doesn't have to be like a certified coach and the best coach in the world. It's just somebody, once again, that's challenging you and that you feel that's watching your progress and that you want to get better for that person. And then another tip that I was going to share was the rewards. I think it's really important to reward ourselves. They need to be spontaneous and sporadic. It's not like every time I go to the gym, I'll have a beer. It has to be a healthy reward if possible. But you need to feed that. I was talking about the Chihuahua earlier. You need to give it little rewards. You need to give it a little treat from time to time. So treat yourself, and okay, maybe if it's not the healthiest thing, you're having a croissant. The other day I had a croissant after, I love croissants, and I just had a croissant. Maybe I think I even had two. And I knew I was feeding, I don't have a croissant addiction. I was feeding celebration. I was feeding reward. I was like, good job, Scotty, you did it. There's probably more calories in those two croissants in the whole entire training, but it doesn't matter. I'm feeding the momentum of becoming the best version of myself. So rewards are super important.
I know how much you love words. You're very much a word guy, and you always like creating words. And I don't know if I ever shared this word with you. Celebrate?
No.
So I haven't. I was going to use it. It'll come out one day. So that's my word. So I celebrate and take a break when I've done something well. And it's celebrating those wins, celebrating those things, celebrating the fact that I used to hate sitting in front of the computer. And I would sit down for the first 15 minutes. I'm like, I could have been upset with myself, but I'm like, I actually just sat down for 15 minutes. Instead of brushing that over, I looked at it and I said, this is a win. And that made me want to get back to it next time. So what I would do for a summer break, I would go for a coffee. I would go for a walk, or I'd go play volleyball. I go to yoga class. All these things that I enjoy that were mundane before are now a celebration to me. So, and it's funny because I probably did realize. So I run a boot camp every morning and we've been doing this for years. Everybody comes to boot camp, but we all stay for the coffee. So we all go for a coffee after, and that's like everybody's prize for me having kicked their ass and sweat and cursed. And then we all sit together and we all laugh about it. And it's part of why everybody shows up every day.
And you see, so the three things are there: coach, which is you, community, and reward. So that's people going to your classes will change habits probably faster than if they were going on their own, or if there was no coffee after. Just one of those elements is missing, and the habit change would not happen as fast.
So I'll share this too. It's really interesting because I've been a personal trainer for over a decade now. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. I stopped taking private clients. I don't take private clients for certain reasons, but I know the power of community. And I know that when people, you might not get that particular change specifically right away, like this body that you're aiming for and everything else, but you will be so consistent and so happy and so driven because I know that community that I've built will feed all of those things, and you will show up every day just because you almost need it after that. So I think I take one personal client from time to time, but I've fed everybody into my community, and I'm so happy to see that because I watch people and come in and go have that coffee, and everybody just feels happy, and I know they show up. I've been training the same people in these boot camps for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So it works. Those three things together are amazing. All right. Last one each.
Okay, I'll go quickly on this one. It's pretty much the foundation of my philosophy around health and wellness, the MVP. So it's the minimal viable practice. So that's a practice you can do anywhere in the world on your own, no equipment, you're tired, you're pissed off, you're on an island, and you can still do the practice. So these are, you can have 1 or 2 or 3 MVPs or more, whatever. It's a practice that takes 30 seconds to 2 minutes, 5 minutes max. That you can do, especially on the days that you don't have the energy, that you want to skip, and the MVP makes sure that you don't skip a day. I often give as a sort of a Scotty prescription. I don't know if I can use that word. Scotty tip, let's say, to people is 3 times a day, 3 conscious breaths. Like everybody can do that. 9 breaths out of the 20,000. It takes about 3 minutes out of the 1,440 minutes in a day. So super accessible, simple, effective. It can be 4 times 10 push-ups. It can be 1 times 10 squats, whatever it is. Because in the beginning, especially, the quality and the quantity of the practice is not necessarily super important. Of course, they're important, but what's more important is doing the practice daily, especially on the days that you don't feel like doing it. And 10 push-ups will tame the mind as much as 100 push-ups. That's what you'll see at one point. Just by doing it, by taking action, the mind is tamed. You mastered the mind that day just by taking one small action. When I was in deep depression in 2010, I remember I had flossing, I had meditating for 3 minutes. I had 4 times 5 push-ups, like super, super simple. But by doing those, sometimes the 4 times 5 push-ups would lead to flossing and then lead to meditation. And there'd be a momentum that would be created. And I did a 100-day plan of MVPs, and I started like at 2 on 10 in terms of mindset. And by day 50, 60, I was already up in the 70s and 80s by simply adding in MVPs to my life. So don't underestimate the power of a minimal viable practice.
Look at you. I love that. And I love how like we feel comfortable. So it's like getting this first podcast feels nice.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Minimal viable practice is amazing. It's bite size. Like those are the bite sizes. And this is going to lead into what I say. It's like one of the things is there's a lot of information out there. Even today, we're talking about so many things, and there's going to be an overflood of want. I'm going to want to do all this. Pick one. Literally sit there. If you read a book and it's got 52 tips, pick the one that's going to be the cornerstone of your progress for a little while. So whatever you need, pick the one and give that 100% for a little while and let that grow instead of picking 10 and feeling like you failed at all of them. So like when we're talking about morning practice, I love this. It's a morning. So I've been in and out of my practice, but I've let my practice fluctuate and change. The one thing, my MVP, is I always wake up and I put a glass of water with lemon and salt. And knowing that I come back to that no matter what makes me feel like I can get that win in my book. And then the rest feels like it's an easier thing. But I remember I used to not like and feel hard on myself because I would wake up and read all the books about your morning practice. And I said this earlier. I would laugh about it. After that, I'd be like, how the hell do people have all this time? So you're supposed to wake up, make your bed, take a cold shower. They don't even forget you got to poop sometimes. And that's not in there. But then that takes another 10 minutes. And this whole practice of journaling, meditation, yoga, sweating for 15 minutes, it's like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then if I wasn't hitting those 3 hours, I would feel bad because that's what the people are saying you should be doing.
They're like, how the F do I do that?
Or the people who are struggling. It's like, okay, so wake up, make it an MVP, make it something small, and then grow from that. Don't pick your morning practice to be 97 things. Pick the one. And if it's, like I said, if it's making your bed, that's a win. If it's having a glass of water with lemon and salt, which I love now, it's a win. And then it becomes part of your life. And then they call it habit stacking. You add another one, And then getting down onto that meditation cushion becomes easier. You build momentum. There's less resistance in there. You want to go into it. You're like, okay, I got 2 wins. I'm like, what's the third? And again, it's that game. I'm like, haha, all right, cool. And I'll be honest too. I used to meditate every day. I stopped for a while, but I really found it interesting is I would permit myself to meditate on the days I had the amount of time I needed. So when Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I don't have time. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, I have time. So I'll give myself that 10 or 15 minutes those days because the other times I have to be up and training people at 7 a.m. So the time frame is really small and I don't want to put that pressure on and feel like I failed. And I know I can, since I've meditated for so long and I've done it in some deeper versions of it, I can access it quickly. So it's not, it's in me already. So again, like you said before, do it for the 90 days, get it in you. And then if you see, don't bargain, but if you see it's like, okay, it's a little bit of pressure, but I can do it 4 days a week. 4 days a week is better than 7. It's better than 0 for sure. So work on that.
Like my evening meditation, I found that tough. And I did an MVP at one point. It was like a 22-day plan of, I think it was a 3-minute meditation before going to bed. And even then, sometimes I skipped it. I was like, I found that too tough. I'm like, I'm tired. I don't have the time to do it. But I brought it down sort of to that minimal viable practice. So yeah, the MVP. So on that, that was a really good podcast from my point of view. I really enjoyed it. Whoever's listening out there, I'm going to try to figure out how to put this on YouTube later. It'll be on places to be found as we're supposed to. Always, if there's a comment, a question, the questions are going to help us know what more information you're looking for. So if you want to hear more about something, comment. Or if there's something that you're like, hey, I need to know a tip and a trick, or how do I handle the pressure, or how to just put those questions in the comments. I'm going to love to go find those for you. And I will find the right people to talk to, the right information to share. And literally the purpose of my whole being is to help people be better.
I love that. I want people to win. I want people to feel great about themselves. That's my deepest, most heartfelt desire.
Well, thank you for starting this podcast, first of all, for starting Mail Montreal, for being the man that you are, for shifting your life in the way you did, for being my friend, but also being on my starting five of my spirit team, my support team. And you know how important that is for me with especially in the last few years. And it's a real honor and privilege to be your first guest. And if I can support you and your community in any way, my whole wellness toolkit is at your service, my network, and I'm truly here to serve your mission as well. And if that's a gift in terms of gift giving, I'd love to give that gift to you and your community in any shape or form.
Yeah, you've given many, many of those to me, and I will keep taking them. And I feel easy because we've probably done it so many times. Where can people find you? What do you do? If they want to reach out, if they want to come to one of your events, projects, how can they support you?
If they want to reach out, email is probably the best way. Scott@scottsimonsinc.com. You can find me on Instagram, Scott Simons Inc., Facebook, LinkedIn. And I'd love to receive questions or challenges or whatever. And if you need support, please reach out. Please reach out. I'm truly at the service of humanity. I really feel that sounds huge, but I mean, I had the Be Human Club, and I'm really there to support people wherever they are along their journey of health and wellness. So I'd love to hear from you. And those would be the ways to on my website, scottsimonsinc.com. Please reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Love that. As for us, this is called the Male Movement Podcast. Like I said, we're helping men move forward in their lives. We want to give you information. We want to give you care, community, love, everything we can to help men move and do and be and succeed in the need that they need, not in the way society wants them to. So that's always going to be a very clear clarification, separation on that. Our goal for the next year or two is to build community and be consistent. So we are building a calendar starting for the summer where we will be consistently showing up doing things that are very easy and accessible for men in the Montreal area, so we can see and be together more often. So we're looking at a calendar of every Sunday doing something like going for a walk in the park, going for a coffee, doing yoga, doing some fun events. But it's also, some people might take that as a small thing, but the consistency behind meeting with the right people will help you grow so fast. So instead of trying to do one big thing a month, we want to have these small things where we can just talk. I want to talk to you. I want to sit so I can share, so we can share, so we can communicate. We can be in that community, and that is going to be the most valuable thing. Besides that, we'll be doing other stuff, but that's the part that's the most important part to me right now. So Male Montreal, find us on Instagram. We'll be switching that to Male Movement at one point, but for now it's Male Montreal. We are in Montreal. We will be growing here. This will be our home base for a while. Lots of love. Thank you very much for being part of this and being part of my life.
Thank you. Breathe deep.
And we'll be back, and I'm sure I'll have you on again soon.
Ciao.